Book 1 Section 14. How Fear and Reason Precipitated a Decision, and a Brief Journey was made which indirectly brought reconciliation. Graham, it was gone too when we got back to the hotel, and I'll be honest, we were a little the worse for wear. Glasses were not allowed to be empty for long periods, though it felt a bit strange celebrating with complete strangers, and I was glad to call it a night. Things got a bit racy for a while when the father got over-emotional with us, this leading the mother to suggest he should have done something, which gave him a vision of a future of continuous references to the moment of his emasculation. Still, not a penny spent behind the bar, and it was funny seeing Benny on the telly. I've just realized that there is a strange Morecambe and Wise element to our relationship. For some reason, we have taken rooms as cohabitants in Luton without even considering the possibility of single rooms. Zippy is lying on his bed, laughing at things at random, though failing to share the cause of his mirth. I can't stop thinking about Hillary, especially as Sally reminded me of her. I decide to share this with Zippy. Tell you what, Zip. Wouldn't mind seconds with Hillary right now. Know what I mean? He just nods. It's a nod that suggests this is not a conversational boulevard he wishes to walk down, but as I do, he'll just have to come with me. Typical, isn't it? I ponder and he agrees before waiting to find out what is typical. A sure sign of disinterest. I continue. You meet someone like that at exactly the wrong moment. I mean, yes, she looks like a tough sort, but underneath that she has the same needs and desires as all of us. I just got the feeling that it could have been something special. I leave him the floor. Didn't seem like that when you saw her at the spa. She was, well, a bit distant. Is the best he can do. I leave him the chance to speak and all he can do is fill the room with his negative thoughts and convictions that people are never to be happy. This is not the game we expect of him. What is it supposed to mean? I inquire. Note. Just that maybe you're reading too much into it. Shag's a shag. Like. He replies, once again unfailing in his ability to fail to comprehend any true beauty in life. Maybe it was more than that, but the circumstances were against us. What's to say she won't come out to Malaga and see me? What's to say she isn't lying in bed with the phone in her hand trying to pluck up the courage to call? Let's see how he gets out of that one. Would be pointless that. Well, what more could I expect of you? Yes, of course it would be pointless. How right you are. God, Zip, do you not ever feel there is something missing? I appeal to his more romantic nature. It would be pointless because your phone is off. He throws me the apparatus and it is without the flashing green light which indicates it is functioning. Switch it on, then. Call her yourself. That way you will know, and the truth will be out. She will be mine and soon she will come for me. All he has to say is yes to make me happy. Humor me a little boy. I was going to say and you can stop giving me shite, but if you prefer that, then, your vibe. He smiles a smile laden with requests for silence. Maybe you're right. It is a waste of time. If I spoke to her now, what would I say? Anyway, I don't seem to be able to be myself when I'm around her. Sod it. I leave the phone on the side table and prepare for bed. Zippy accepts that situation and heads for slumber himself, not bothering to undress. Still, I sit on the bed and he can intercept the sighs as a marker that rest will not be taken just yet. Look, for your sake, and just as much, mine. Switch on the phone. Call her. Send her a message. Whatever. Please, Gray. It's late. Maybe it's better not to know the truth. If you don't do it, I will, and I'll pretend to be you. That way we will know whether answer is yes or no. He's right. Anyway, she might be out. Have hers off. Or be doing a million other things. I get the phone and switch it on. A number is requested to access the networks. A number I can't remember. Zippy knows neither the number nor why I think he should know it. This could be fate trying to let me down gently. I look in various pockets but have no luck in locating the valued number. After a few minutes frantic looking, the idea of giving up is close to my mind when the number appears in Zippy's jacket pocket. When asked what it was doing there, no answer of any worth was forthcoming. I enter the 4 digits that could possibly lead me to the greatest knowledge in my adult life and await connection to the network. Although we are in Scotland, some form of digital communication must be possible outside the capital. After the amount of time that had passed went from plausible to worrying, the phone managed to kick itself into gear. I held my finger on the dial button, having been in this situation before, though never got around to hearing the ringing tone. My eyes glanced at the conveniently placed clock, which informed me indirectly that one would need the most unrequited of loves to accept a call at this hour in good humor. Message, then. Now the problem was the composition. If I simply put that I was thinking about her, that might be too little, and she'll think I'm only after one thing. If I put I love her, then she'll think I'm getting heavy and want out. Anyway, I don't love her. I don't think I do. I don't see how I can. It's just that there's no one else to love, or think about loving. All this deliberation has caused the hands of time to work more, and the phone has itself received an incoming message. She has done the work for me. Tortured without sleep, she could not resist the true temptations of her desires and has left a message. I accessed the message, expecting its content to change my life, and it did, but not in the way I expected. I awoke Zippy and made him listen to the message. He was less fazed by its content and suggested there was no way they could be here even before tomorrow. I awoke Benny and Gore, and at least they showed some of the interest I would expect in our impending murder. "Okay, Gray, relax," suggested Benny. "If it went out at 10 p.m., I doubt he could get much before tomorrow, which is now today. You're the logistics man. Look at the facts. He sees it at 10, probably near 1/2 past, 'cause I can't see it being the opening item. He's probably in so state to drive. First he has to be informed what and where Scotland is. Then he has to get his cronies together and come up here. He is not going to appear for a solo gig. At best, if he left at 12, it would take 7 hours minimum. He would get somewhere near here around 7. Danger is not imminent." Benny looked at me expecting recognition and congratulations. Perhaps it was a lot to ask of Colvin. Why did it have to go out nationally? How come the only decent act we had performed in our lives had to coincide with our greatest need for anonymity? Why did it have to happen on a day so bereft of news? Couldn't our transatlantic cousins invade some Arab nation today on the pretext of a mislaid chemistry set? Couldn't a volcano spring into life, causing an amount of mayhem guaranteed to shelve our item from the playlist? All the things that happen every day on motorways and trains and planes. Suddenly the penny dropped. Airplanes. I scream. "Oh, I love word association games," replies Gore, meaning some clarity would benefit the listeners. They could get a plane from Luton or Gatwick or Heathrow and be here in a matter of hours. This seemed like a genuine fear, though all of mine did. For them to mobilize themselves to the extent of catching a plane seemed even less probable than the car option, but whilst it still existed in my head, it was still a viable possibility. "Improbable? How can we know?" Benny interjected. "You do have to assume that it would take more intelligence than they have. Anyway, there are no guarantees that Colvin saw the piece. Maybe he knows nothing of our whereabouts. Although we should move on, tomorrow, to be on the safe side." Benny's flippancy was not having a calming effect on me. Internet. Again, I failed to articulate a sentence, and a single word was inadequate to providing sufficient understanding. What I meant was that we could check on the internet in the lobby and that way see when the last flights were. Reluctantly, on their part, yet necessarily, on mine, we enter the lobby and hook up to the land of Bill. The owner of the hotel inquires if all is well and we smile. He doesn't make any further inquiries. We solicit some strong coffee and soon it is forthcoming. To work. From Luton, there is nothing after 8 o'clock. There is one from Heathrow at 10:30, which would be impossible for them. Gatwick, though, boasts a midnight flight. It would be a very tight squeeze to get there, though logistics suggest it could be possible. Had they caught it, they would now be in their neighbouring land, road map in hand, soon to arrive at our hotel. Benny has a thought. Taking out his mobile, he pretends to be waiting for a group of passengers from Gatwick as he phones Glasgow Airport. He asks for a tannoy announcement to be put out, but is held in his tracks by the bemused airline worker who can't comprehend why this person doesn't know that the midnight flight from Gatwick was cancelled due to technical difficulties. All the passengers have been put up in a local hotel, and if he holds on a minute, the line went dead. We were in the clear. From the plane. They could still be the other side of Leicester, though. We couldn't stay too long. Right. We ship out at 6. Get in the car. Drive towards Glasgow, get some distance behind us and find a new hotel. Get closer to the airport. A town like this. This is my plan. I'm not driving at the moment, replies Benny. Go. You never feel the effects. Get a couple of hours, Kip, and then we'll move off. Less than 50 miles. I suggest. I'm not fit to drive, man. Make it 9. We can't let his time frame give him the possibility of finding us. He can't have flown and needs 7 hours to get here. After that he is winning. 7 hours gives us to 6. We leave at 6. You drive then, offers Benny. My driving skills are none too appreciated at the best of times, and although sobriety came with TK's message, no doubt the demons will conspire to return when I sit behind the wheel. Also, I know Benny and his little mind games, so I accept, which has my desired effect of causing Gore to okay the idea, but he will need some sleep. We inform the owner that we have to leave immediately and should care for our bill to be prepared as a swift maneuver. The owner informs us that he will not be able to present us with a bill as it would appear to be the most inappropriate of behavior, given the circumstances. We concur with this philosophy and thank him for his inordinate kindness, duly wishing him his continuance as a paradigm of hostelry. As we had to let 2 hours and bit pass for Gore to sleep, we could afford such verbosity. Had we been in a hurry, the conversation would have been more functional. There was a suggestion of sleep for all, though for me the efforts and strain of the evening provoked fatigue, but made sleep an impossible dream. We collected our things, returned to the lobby, drank more coffee, played on the net, watched crap TV, and at 25 to 7 were awoken on the sofa by Gore, with car keys in hand, mumbling something about a time frame. Goodbyes were quick and we were soon on the road. Driving 50 or so miles north to just outside Glasgow, we checked into a new hotel that was, we were convinced, out of Colvin's range. We took a room each and fell into a deep long slumber that would take us to within 24 hours of our departure for Spain. We hoped for some relaxing times to come, yet knew in our hearts that things never worked out like that. Still, in sleep Hilly and Sally became Julia, and there I sat on my beautiful island engulfed by love. Meanwhile, in the hotel the fine boys from Luton had just left hours before. 3 rather unpleasant-looking youths have appeared in the lobby asking for the dirty, thieving scum who have ruined the empire. I single out one, the one who talks, though his locution desires an entire conference, as Colvin. The other 2 are unknown to me. Their looks do suggest their accompaniment of Colvin is merely to find new forms of pain for the brain, muscles, the chemist and the good-looking one. The 3 boys are given the information that the ones they look for no longer reside at this hotel and commence a demonstration of anger. Colvin suggested that they deserve to be hung, drawn and quartered for what they have done. This is too much for the crowd in the lobby, who had built up an enormous respect for the actions of our now departed friends, especially the father of the little one plucked from the water, who felt it impossible to contain the anger that stirred in him, and with one mighty blow on the chin of Colvin, was released from the impotence that had haunted him since the incident. Colvin's 2 colleagues thought about rushing to his aid, but soon thought better of the idea when numbers were assessed. As we were also in the company of the charming Sergeant Johnson, it was considered for the best that these 3 were given the lack of comfort of a cell to think over their wayward philosophies on life, and it was to great cheers that they were led away. Afterwards, the mother of the daughter Save looked tearfully at her husband, and although her vocal cords and her lips seemed at loggerheads, managed to mouth the word sorry, and they reassumed the embrace, this time safe in the knowledge that their daughter could come into no harm from watching Japanese cartoons, at least in the short term. So, I made my way up to bed, an early night for me as I returned to the Costa and leave behind the warmth of the coldest place I have ever been to. Just 15 miles from Glasgow seemed a good place to stop. We checked in and were soon making up for the hours of sleep lost now. Whether Colvin had the lucidity to check out the airports after what for him would have been a Homeric journey was a fate best left to the deities. It was nowadays reputed to be Sunday. Our flight left Glasgow at 2 on the dot, though airports dots are less clear than other dotters, a first-class upgrade being tomorrow's first piece of business owing to our saving a few quid on the hotel bill. We decided to fly to Alicante. This was a decision which proves the shortcomings of democracy. I had suggested Madrid, which would give us a chance to see the capital and scratch our chins at some rather major works of art. This decision was immediately rebuffed in favour of the superior leisure opportunities offered in the Alicante and Benidorm areas, precipitated by the fact that Benny's loins and Zippy's nose had been neglected since leaving London. Gore seemed to maintain his usual disinterest in siding one way or the other, and so the 2 votes were enough to see me ousted. This time we decided on single rooms and would reconvene when our bodies considered themselves rested. I lay on my bed and tried not to think of Hilary. After about 43 seconds I found this impossible and then reached for the mobile. I rang the number and immediately hung up before the connection could be made. I repeated this action on 4 occasions, then decided to put the phone down and curse myself for a while. The fact that I had called her would not mean anything. I could always give an excuse that it was too dangerous to phone people from Luton, although then she would interpret that as me saying something like "you were the only one I could think of." She'd say, "Why not phone Timmy? Why not speak to your mates?" But maybe she wanted me to phone her. I took the phone again and pressed redial. I prepared my opening address and then shat myself again. This time though I pressed a button which would guarantee the call would be continued rather than the rapid termination I had hoped for. I heard the first tone. Now I was trapped. If I hang up now she'll know that I'm a coward. If I don't I'll have to speak to her, and that could be worse. I could feel myself gravitating to a pointless comment such as "I was bored so," or some other lame attempt for me to justify the call. Of course, I could just tell her that I wanted to speak to her, but were we truly ready for honesty? After 3 tones there is still no answer. It is little after 10 on a Sunday morning. I can't see her getting ready for Mass right now. More likely, if she can hear the phone she is likely to ignore it as sleep is one of her priorities. After 4 tones, I start to relax. She is clearly not going to answer, and 6 tones is acceptable. After 6 tones, I know that I have tried and she has not responded. I will have 1. Though, if she has not heard the 6 tones it is akin to there not being 6 tones. She could still think that I hung up straight away, too fearful to talk to her. Therefore, my victory will have been for nothing. Why can't the phone inform her that there were 6 tones? That I did confront my fears and wanted to speak to her. But no, the phone would only indicate uncertainty between spineless and heroic. This means I will have to phone again. Then the phone would tell her that she had 2 missed calls. A spineless person would never phone twice. The problem was, what if her phone had the capacity to inform her of the time of the calls? Then she would know that I had called once, seen there was no answer, and then taken advantage of the moment to redial so that I looked good. Finally, the longer I left it the more chance she had of answering. Tiredness was overcoming me. I tried to wait 10 minutes but knew it would be fruitless. I rang again and sweated my way through 4 tones before giving in. Now it was in her hands. Remembering the big O, I allowed her to be mine, in dreams. I knew it was me. I couldn't tell how old I was, but it was definitely sometime in the future. I was in a square that I probably associated with Marbella, but couldn't as I had yet to visit the place. I was pushing a bicycle, and, despite the future being the background for the incident, it actually appeared like time had progressed whilst styles had returned to the 40s. I caught a glimpse of myself in a dapper suit, very Cary Grant I thought, as a pair of young ladies walked past, and I gave them the benefit of my trilby tipping skills. I could hear the sea and felt the desire to walk along the beach. At first the beach was idyllic with golden sands and cool, clear, blue waters. As I walked on, though, I noticed the sand turned to jagged stones, the water became choppy, and suddenly my path was blocked by a giant squid that had been washed up on the shore. The squid was still alive and gestured that I help him to open his mouth. As I did so the entire top of the head flipped back and inside was Hillary sitting in a miniature pod. She said that all the flights were full, so she had come by squid. I helped her out and we walked further along the shore. The fine, golden sand returned and the waters regained the serenity seen before. We talked and laughed as we wandered along the beach. A feeling of warmth and felicity came over me like never before, and I wondered, could it last? It was soon proven that it couldn't. At the end of the beach was an oversized, at least 3 meters, Colvin holding Benny, Zippy and Gore in headlocks, made possible by the fact that he had 3 arms. In each hand was a knife that was no doubt soon to be employed to slit the throats of my 3 companions. Colvin was gesturing that if I came to him he would spare them, but Hillary had to go back into the squid. I looked at her and then at my friends, then saw Julia, old and disheveled, but saying she would take me back. Torn between 3 options, I heard my mother's voice repeating the same sentence again and again. Hey is low, to crease low measure, do whatever you think is best. This didn't help. I wanted to go to Hillary, but couldn't look at Julia. Then I saw the knife start to make an incision in Zippy's neck, and though my head was telling me to go to Hillary, I found myself walking towards the salvation of my friends and the rest of my life at Colvin's disposal. I woke up in a sweat and tried to forget the dream. Even my dreams managed to reaffirm my minimal worth as a person. Maybe it was time to think about dissolving the partnership, or at least soon. I checked the phone. You have no calls. It would appear. I didn't fancy any more sleep, although the clock suggested that 4 hours had been enjoyed. I didn't feel any more refreshed and ready for the world then when I had got into bed, so I opted for heading downstairs and seeing what was about. After the shower, things were treating me in a more pleasant way again. By not taking the mobile into the bathroom with me, I increased the chances of it sounding as I would be unable to hear it. This theory is of some worth, but it may be that Sundays are not days for mobile theories. Using the same method, I left the phone upstairs so that when she phoned me she would not have the luxury of an immediate response. I had earned that by phoning twice. Anyway, her response time is so out that there is very little point in interpreting any call, if indeed it does come. Response time is essential for measuring a woman's interest. If you send her a message that is open, by open we mean not something like, "What time does your flight get in?" as that requires an instant response. Rather something like, "I've got 2 tickets for the Bloomsbury on Saturday, and I was wondering if you'd do me the marvellous honour of accompanying me." The amount of time that passes before they respond indicates what can happen in terms of possible relationships. Once any kind of contact has been initiated, response time loses its validity. In less than 5 minutes can be worrying, too keen. No response is not actually the worst situation. Any response that takes more than a day to arrive plays more with your head than being simply ignored. Why wait 1 day to respond? What does that mean? Quite often more than 1 day responses are accompanied with rather flimsy excuses: left mobile in office, no credit, was scaling K2, which don't help the situation. 45 minutes is around the best response time. It suggests interest, whilst making it clear that nothing should be taken for granted. Then again, all people are different, so 4 hours for Hillary could be like 10 minutes for someone else. Perhaps that number was her work mobile, and she uses another for her social life, and, as she is spending this weekend helping her mother rehang the paintings, I leave the room, unable to be located, and pleased with my work. In the hotel bar, I am surprised to find Benny. Benny has had the same fraught attempt at sleep as myself, and I fear that our endemic friction may be exacerbated. I have made a decision to try to be as affable as possible with him, though there are never successful tangos for one. He is in deep conversation with the owner of the hotel, as he has hit upon the idea of the Audi being superfluous to our needs after tomorrow. He is correct in this affirmation. I hadn't considered it. This attitude helps me be nice to Benny as it shows that his mind is focused, the only problem being that if he gets a good price for it then we will be constantly reminded of the fact that it was him who showed the noose. The stumbling block at the moment is that we do not have the logbook, or indeed any proof of ownership. This does not please the owner, for, should the car be misappropriated then the local constabulary would more than likely insist on its return to the rightful owner. I said that Timmy wouldn't use a hot vehicle for his own work, although, perhaps surprisingly, the fact that I said it was okay was still not enough to convince our temporary landlord. This meant a call to TK, this meant me returning to my room and seeing the mobile again. Upstairs in no time, I located the phone and was pleased to see the information pertaining to a missed call from Hillary. Now, I had to activate my response time. I checked my watch and set the alarm for 46 minutes from now. From the look of the missed call it was definitely 6 tones minimum. I skipped down to the hotel bar and gave Benny the phone to call TK. Our man in London was confident that the car was clean. It was purchased at a reduced rate from a friend of his, but he insisted that he had the need to be sufficiently cautious these days and to ride around in a hooky jam jar. Very London, TK. Over and out. This was still not considered enough for the hotel owner. We were beginning to think that this was simply the frugal Caledonian nature looking for a bargain when Benny offered the possibility of checking up with the Rosas. Simple process. Did he have a friend on the force? Yes, good. Phone that friend and get him to do a trace. If the car is clean then they will have no record of it. Therefore, it can be re-registered with the hotel owner as the new proprietor. The new logbook would be sent out in the first post. Our prospective client did not seem swayed by the legality of this process, but was soon brought round to our way of thinking after a conversation with his friend of the long arm. 8 grand was agreed as the price. Rather stingy in the circumstances, still where were we going to find some who would offer 10 before 2 tomorrow? Within half an hour we had the cash in our hands. Our wily Scot preferring his own safe and our shotgun to the untrusting hands of the local bankers. At least, I think he said bankers. Zippy and Gore, unknowingly, had just made $2,000 whilst they slept, placing them in the echelons of some of the greatest entrepreneurs on the planet. It was decided that a hearty curry should be enjoyed as our last supper, Da Vinci being replaced by a fun camera picked up from the hotel shop. When the alarm went off, my palms began to sweat and a strange tingling possessed my legs. I was at my own perfect response time and had to strike. I planned to be erudite, gracious and urbane as I counted the tones. She picked up after 3. Technically a good sign. However, her voice was calm, which meant she had not rushed to pick up the phone from another room, rather had the phone in her hand and allowed 2 tones to pass before accepting the call. My initial plans for a conversation without precedence were fruitless. At moments I was inane, and should the conversation be analyzed to a greater level the word banal would appear. Still, it was a chat and I got 6 minutes out of her, which did not seem bad for Hillary. We made no concrete plans for the future, and when the line went dead neither of us had experimented any major change in their lives. It was nice though, and she said she might come to Spain, and that she'd give me a call sometime. We rallied the troops and prepared for a night's festivities. It is always better to travel by airplane with a hangover, that way, if you crash and die, at least you were pissed the night before. I tell Benny I'm gonna try and be less of a twat, and he accepts the olive branch. Whilst waiting for the Zip and the Gore, the news is viewed, and, to our delight, our previous hotel is again in the news as 3 young hooligans caused an altercation that was thwarted by fine, upstanding residents. The 3 scalawags were arrested and will face judicial charges first thing on Monday morning. I looked at Benny and laughed, fraternity filling my veins, making me believe that this time, things could just work out.